This is a Haudenosaunee winter tale, The Great Bear, Ogwari-goa. There were 3 hunters who were brothers. No hunters were as good as they were at following a trail. They never gave up once they began tracking their quarry. One day in the moon, when the cold nights return, an urgent message came to the village of the hunters. A great bear, Ogwari-goa, had appeared, one so large and powerful that many thought it must be some kind of monster. The children no longer went out to play in the woods. The long houses of the village were guarded each night by men with weapons who stood by the entrances. Each morning, when the people went outside, they found the huge tracks of the bear in the midst of their village. They knew that soon it would become even bolder and cause them harm. The people of the village, whose hunting grounds the monster bear had invaded, were very afraid. Picking up their weapons and calling their little Mohawk dog, the hunters set forth for that village, which was not far away. No, I don't think that was their dog. No, I'm pretty sure that was not their dog either. Yes, this was their little dog that they called Four Eyes. As the hunters came closer to the village, they noticed how quiet the woods had become. Soon the brothers came across a tall tree, a great white pine. They found the scars where the great bear had reared up on its hind legs and had made deep scratches in the tree to mark its territory. The tallest and oldest of the brothers tried to touch the highest of the scratch marks with the tip of his spear. He said, "It is as the people feared. This one we hunt is a monster bear." The second brother asked, "What about the magic that Great Bear has?" The oldest brother said, "The magic won't help it once we find its tracks." "That is so," said the third brother. "I have always heard that from the old people. Those creatures can only chase a hunter who has not yet found its trail. When you find the tracks of the Great Bear and begin to chase it, then it must run from you." Now this third brother just happened to be one of the laziest hunters and seemed to be hungry all the time. He told his brothers that he was feeling very hungry and asked if they had brought enough food with them. The 2 older brothers ignored their younger brother and continued on to the village. Before too long, the brother hunters and their small dog reached the village. It was a sad sight to see. There was no fire burning in the center of the village, and the doors of all the long houses were closed. Warriors stood on guard with clubs and spears, and there was no game hung from the racks or skins stretched for tanning. The people looked very hungry and scared. The oldest hunter met with the chief and clan mothers of the village and told them that they had come to help to get rid of the Great Bear. The people of the village were very nervous and didn't know if they believed what they'd heard. Then the youngest, laziest hunter spoke up and said he was feeling rather hungry and wouldn't mind if he could get some food and have a rest somewhere. The oldest brothers just shook their head and smiled, and he said, "My brother is such a joker." The chief and clan mothers of the village told the oldest hunter that they think he may not be able to do as he says. Whenever we try to follow those tracks, they disappear. The second oldest brother knelt down and patted the head of their small dog Four Eyes. He said to the people that their dog has a very special talent, and he pointed to the 2 small circles over the eyes of their dog. Four Eyes can see tracks even many days old. The third brother, who is the laziest hunter, says, "That's why we should have something to eat first." His older brothers rolled their eyes and they nod their goodbyes to the village and leave. Sighing loudly, the laziest hunter lifted his long spear and trudged after his brothers. As the hunters went on their way, they turned to bid farewell to the village and promised that they would catch that monster bear. They walked, following their little dog. It kept lifting up its head as if to look around with its 4 eyes. The trail was not easy to find. The lazy hunter complained, "Don't you think we should rest? We've been walking a long time." But his brother paid no attention to him. Though they could see no tracks of the great bear, they walked, following their little dog. The little dog was looking very hard, using all its 4 eyes. "Brothers," whines the lazy hunter, "don't you think we should rest? We've been walking a long time now." But his brothers paid no attention to him. Though they could see no tracks, they could feel the presence of the great bear Ogwarigoa. They knew that if they did not soon find its trail, it would make its way behind them. Then they would be the hunted ones. The lazy brother took out his pemmican pouch. At least he could eat while they were walking along. He opened the pouch and shook out the food he had prepared so carefully. Earlier he had dried meat and berries in the sun. When the meat and berries had dried, he added maple sugar. His mouth was watering for that food. However, when he tipped the food out onto his hand, instead of food coming out of the pouch, pale, squirming worms and things fell out onto his hand. The magic of the great bear had changed the food into worms. "Brothers," the laziest hunter shouted, "let's hurry and catch that big bear. Look what it did to my pemmican. Now I am angry." Meanwhile, like a pale, giant shadow, the great bear was moving through the trees close to the hunters. Its great mouth was open as it watched them, and its huge teeth shone. Its eyes flashed red. Soon it would be behind them and on their trail. Just then the little dog lifted its head and yelped. "Hey!" yelled the oldest hunter. "Four Eyes has found the trail." Shouted the second hunter. "We have the track of the great bear now," said the third brother. "Great Bear!" he yelled. "We are after you now." Fear filled the heart of the great bear for the first time, and it began to run. As it broke from the cover of the pines, the hunters saw it, its huge shape so pale as to appear almost translucent. With loud hunting cries they began to run after it. The great bear's strides were long, and it ran more swiftly than a deer. The hunters and their little dog were swift also and did not fall behind. The trail led through swamps and thickets. It was easy to find the trail, for the bear pushed everything aside as it ran, even knocking down big trees. On and on they ran, over hills and through valleys. Now they came to the slope of a huge mountain and followed the trail higher and higher, every now and then catching a glimpse of their quarry over the next rise. Now the lazy hunter is getting very tired at this point, and he pretends to fall and twist his ankle and tells his brothers they must carry him. The brothers feel sorry for the brother, and they decide they will carry him. They were still very swift as they carried their lazy brother, but the day had turned to night, and the great bear was still ahead of them. They were at the top of the mountain now, and the ground was so dark beneath them. The great bear was finally tiring, but so were the two oldest brothers, as it was not easy carrying their lazy brother. Four Eyes was nipping at the tail of the great bear. The lazy hunter told his brother to put him down. The brothers did as he asked. Fresh and rested, the laziest hunter grabbed his spear and dashed ahead of his brothers. Just as the great bear turned to bite at the little dog, the lazy hunter threw his spear and kills the great bear. By the time the older brothers have caught up, the lazy hunter has already built a fire and is ready to cook the great bear. "Come, brothers," he says, "all this running has made me hungry." So they cooked the meat of the great bear, and its fat sizzled as it dripped from their fire. They ate until even the laziest hunter was satisfied and leaned back in contentment. Just then, the oldest hunter looked down at his feet. All the brothers looked down, and below them were thousands of small sparkling lights in the darkness which they realized was all around them. "We are not on the mountain top any more," says the third brother. "We are in the sky." And it was so. The great bear had indeed been magical. Its feet had taken it high above the earth as it tried to escape the hunters. However, their determination not to give up the chase had carried them up that strange trail to the sky. Just then their little dog yipped twice. "The great bear!" said the second brother. "Look!" The hunters looked. There where they had piled the bones of the feast was the great bear coming back to life and rising to its feet. As they watched, it began to run again with little Four Eyes close to its heels. "Follow me!" shouted the older brother. Grabbing up their spears, the hunters again began to chase the great bear across the sky. So it was, as the old people say, and so it still is. Each autumn the hunters chase the great bear across the skies and kill it. Then, as they cut it up for their meal, the blood falls down from the sky and colors the leaves of the maple trees scarlet. They cook the bear, and the fat dripping from their fire turns the grass white. So it is. At this time of year, you can see in the winter months how that Big Dipper sits in the sky world. That Big Dipper we know as Ursa Major. The Little Dipper is Ursa Minor. So that concludes our story of Aguarigoa, the great bear, and the three hunters and their little dog Four Eyes, and how every year those hunters and that little dog chase that great bear across the sky, and every year our autumn returns. Now, Agoa.